So we're ready to create our first basic material for the scene, which is the glass. And I'm going to open the slate material editor again, and you can see that I'll only be using the slate material. The reason for that is that, in my opinion, it offers more control over a large amount of materials, and it's also better for editing textures. So I'll always be using the slate material editor, but you can use the compound version if you like. So here we already have our base material created. So I'm going to scroll out and I'm going to create another EYECONE design, and we'll always be using EYECONE design for these scenes because the EYECONE design is the best material for architectural renders. Okay, so we'll only be using the EYECONE design. So I'll double click it and I'm going to rename this glass, and in here we're going to use a template for that. So I'm going to be using the glass template, and you can see we have 3 versions. So I'll try to give you a quick explanation of each. The thin geometry glass is better for geometries that don't have 2 faces. So it's better for single faces objects. We have the solid geometry, which is the best for what we have here. It's basically a very good glass for 2-faced objects. Okay, so when you have a solid geometry with faces on both sides, you're going to be using the solid geometry. And the glass physical is best for when you're trying to replicate big glass objects like a glass sculpture. So for our scene, we're going to use the solid geometry, and you can see that it has a little blue tint. We're going to fix that, but first let's just apply this. So I'm going to open these groups here and grab the glasses, and we're going to apply this glass material. They're currently with the Alt X, so I'm going to press Alt X to remove this. There you are. And we have our window glass, which is hidden. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose Unhide All. And I'm going to grab this and apply the glass material. So once that's done, let's just do a quick render so you can see the blue tint that I was talking about. So this is our test render, and as you can see in the preview, it doesn't look like it's a big deal, but when you render like this, you can notice that it's a very apparent blue tint, and it's not very nice for the result that we are trying to accomplish. So the process when we are creating materials is always create a material, apply on the object, and do a quick test render before you move on to the next object. That way you can correct the errors as they come up, and you will always be able to identify where the problem is. Okay, so we'll always do a test render before we move on, so we can see that this is not very nice. So I'm going to close this, and I'm just going to switch the size because I think it's a little too big. Let's do something like 800. And I'm going to open the material editor, and we're going to edit the color. Now, the color for the glass won't be on the diffuse because the light is not bouncing on the surface and coming back. The light is crossing through. So if we change the diffuse color, won't change a thing about this blue tint. What we need is change the color of the light when it crosses through the object. That means we have to change the refraction color. Okay, so if I click color here, you can see it's not completely white, and that's why our glass is rendering blue. So I'm going to scroll this down to completely white, and we're going to do another quick test render. Now, another tip that I can give you here is that we don't have to render the whole scene. We can render just a little piece to see if it's working. So in order to do that, we can change the area to region, and then we can edit this region. I changed the size of my render, so I won't be able to edit the region inside the render view, but I can edit on the viewport. Okay, so I'm going to shrink this a bit, then I can close this to save, and then I can render. And it's only going to render what's within this red area, so it's quicker. There we have it. So this is more the type of glass that we want. It's a clear glass. So this concludes our glass creation. I'm just going to apply in the other objects. You can go ahead and check in your scene what needs to have a glass material and just go and apply it. And I'll see you guys in the next lesson.